Welcome. Today we are going to do some serious math, folks. That's why I'm taking this so serious here. This is a special board. This is a big deal. We're going to be talking about equations like we've been doing, but we're going to be clearing fractions. So it's like magic. I just appeared magically here, and we're going to do some magic. Okay, so you should be taking notes with me, and we're going to call this clearing fractions. And this is a magical day. As you can see, I'm writing backwards. All right, so the skill is clearing fractions, okay? And before we clear fractions, there's a couple things. Well, there's one thing I want to talk about, okay? And write this on your paper, the least common denominator. Okay? And for short, we call that LCD. All right, so least common denominator. So denominator, if we're talking about a fraction, like 1/2, the denominator is the bottom number. All right, and if I was talking about like 1/2 and 3/2, let's say. All right, what is the least common denominator? Well, the denominator is the exact same. So the least common denominator, the LCD, is just 2 on this example right here. But let's look at a slightly more challenging example. What if I had like 1/4 and 3/8? All right, so all I care about is the denominators. All right, I'm not looking at the numerators. I'm just looking at denominators. So I have a 4 and I have an 8. Okay, so if I list the multiples, so I have 4, 8, 12, and I could keep going. And if I list my multiples of 8, so 8, 16, well, I can already stop because look, what do they have in common? What is the smallest number they have in common? The least common multiple is 8. So my LCD is 8. Okay, so pause this. Make sure you're jotting these down. I'm going to give you a couple other a little bit more challenging examples here in just a moment. But if I'm going too quickly, pause your screens there. Okay, pause the video. How about we do one like 1/2? So 1/2 and 5/3. Okay, so again, all I care about is the denominator. And on this one, if I wanted to list these out, list the multiples here. I have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Okay, I'm going to stop there. I'm going to list 3s. 3, 6, 9, 12. All right, what is the least common? Would be 6. If I continued this list, 12 would show up on this. That's another common multiple, but it's not the least common. So the least common multiple, or least common denominator, we're talking about denominators here, would be 6. So my LCD is 6 on this one. All right. Again, and I'm going to do another example here where there are 3 fractions. All right. So if there were 3 fractions, let's say 1/3. Let's try 2/5. And how about 9/2? All right. So if you want, pause your video, try this one. You're just going to list out you could list out all the multiples for all of these. Another strategy, kind of a shortcut, is I'm going to pick the largest number, which is 5 here, and I'm going to list its multiples. So 5, 10, and I'm going to say, hey, 2 can go into 10, right? But can 3, is 10 a multiple of 3? 3, 6, 9, 12, no, it's not. So I'm going to keep listing my multiples of 5. The next one's 15. All right, well, I know 2 won't go into 15, so I'm just going to jump to the next one, is 20. And I'm going to find it, well, no, it still won't be it. I apologize. So 2 goes into 20, but 3 doesn't go into 20. So I'm going to have to do another multiple of 5. 25. I know 2 won't go into it. So finally, 30. It took us a while, but we got there. I know 3 goes into 30. I know 5 obviously goes into 30, and I know 2 because it's even. So my LCD on this one was 30. Okay, let's try one more. And I do encourage you to pause them and try them before me to see if you know what you're doing. This should be a review topic. So this isn't any new math yet. We haven't got to the magic yet. I just want to review this so that we can learn how to clear fractions. So on this one, I'm going to list 3 numbers again. I've got 3/7, 12, and 1/3. Let me finish that 3. So slightly different because this is a whole number, but we're going to often deal with that. So I can make that a fraction. It's just 1, right? And 1 goes into everything. So it's almost like I can ignore that, and I'm looking at these 2. I'm going to take the largest number. I'm going to list its multiples. So 7. I know 3 doesn't go into 7. Oops, 12 is not. 14 is the next one. My bad. So 14, 3 going to 14. I don't think so. I know it goes into 15, so it's not going to go into 14. List the next one is 21. Well, I know 7 times 3 is 21, so obviously that's going to work. So my LCD on this one is 21. All right, so I kind of took a shortcut. If you want, you can list out the 3s and the 7s. That would be another way of doing it. But my shortcut is kind of just take the largest one, list its multiples, and see if you can do that in your head. Okay, now the magic begins. I promised this was a magic show. The magic begins now. We're going to clear fractions. Every kid I've ever taught math to hates fractions. And so I'm going to show you how we can kind of magically get rid of them and solve these problems. All right, so let's start with this one right here. I'm going to show you a beautiful problem. 1/3 x plus 1/4 equals 3/4. And you might be saying to yourself, I can solve that. It's no big deal. But I'm just going to show you. I started with kind of an easier one. We could figure this out. We could solve it probably, and it's not a big deal. But I'm just going to show you how we can clear fractions. So step 1 is find the least common denominator. So I have 3, 4, and 4. So it doesn't matter that I have 2 of those. I'm looking between 3 and 4. What's the LCD? So my LCD, let's see. I'm going to take the large number. I'm going to list its multiples. So 4, 8. Does 3 go into 8? No. 12. 3 does go into 12, right? So my LCD is 12. And so here's what I'm going to do now. Pay attention. This is the magic. I'm going to multiply everything by 12. Okay? I'm going to multiply everything by 12. I'm going to multiply everything by 12 over here. And here's how this works. Okay? So I'm going to ask myself, 3. How many times does it go into 12? 3 goes into 12 4 times. And then I'm going to multiply it by the numerator, which in this case is just 1. So 3 goes into 12 4 times. 4 times 1 is 4. So that's 4x. All right, so I did 12 times this term right here. Now I'm going to do 12 times the 1/4. All right, and again, this is what we call friendly fractions. So how many times does 4 go into 12? 4 goes into 12 3 times. Multiply it by this numerator. So 3 times 1 is just 3. All right, over here, same thing. I'm going to say, how many times does 4 go into 12? 3 times. Multiply it by the numerator. So 3 times 3 is 9. And just like that, magically, I have cleared the fractions. All right? This is equivalent. This is exactly what I had before. This is equivalent to it. And so now I'm just going to solve for x. So just subtract 3 from each side. This is easy now. I know how to do these problems. All right, so this would be 6. And then I divide by 4. Divide by 4. I get x equals 6/4, which I could simplify. I could divide both those by 2. Get it in simplest form. And that's going to be 3/2. That's my answer on this one. And so we could have gotten that. We could have gotten that by doing all this math, but magically I cleared the fractions here, and this was so much easier once I cleared the fractions. All right, so let's try another one of these. Let's see if you guys can start getting the hang of this. Because once you get it, it is something you're going to use all year. It's a beautiful thing. All right, let's see. Let's try 12/5. 12/5. Here, I'm just going to hold my paper here. Plus 3/4 n equals 7/2 plus 3n. Here we go. All right, so remember those directions I gave you, how to solve any equation. And the first one always is, if there's fractions, clear them. So let's clear the fractions first. All right, so got to find the LCD. That's step 1. LCD, step 1. I have 5, 4, 2, and I guess this is a 1, but I can pretty much ignore 1, right, because it goes into everything. So 5, 4, and 2 is what I am worried about. I'm going to do multiples of 5. 5, 10. I know 2 goes into 10, but 4 doesn't. Okay, so let's keep going. 15. Well, that's 2's an even number, so it doesn't go into 15. The next multiple of 5 is 20. I know that 4 goes into 20. 4 times 5. I know that 2 goes into 20. 2 times 10. So 20 is my LCD. All right, 20 is my LCD. So I'm going to multiply everything here by 20. And same thing on this side. Multiply everything by 20. So 20 times this first term. When I say this first term, I mean 12/5. All right, this is the friendly fraction again, and they're always going to be in this case. So 5. How many times does 5 go into 20? 5 goes into 20 4 times. And then what is 4 times 12? It is 48. 48. Okay. Now let's do 20 times 3/4 n. All right, let's take that denominator. How many times does it go into 20? 4 goes into 20 5 times. 5 times 3 is 15. So that's going to be 15, and don't forget the variable part, 15n. All right, over here. Now I'm going to distribute 20 to both of these terms. Let's do this one first. So 7 halves times 20 is what I'm doing. So again, I'm going to take the denominator. It goes into 20 10 times. 10 times 7 is 70, sorry. All right, and then this last one here, well, this isn't even a fraction, so it's just 20 times 3n, which I know to be 60n. There we go. All right, so what did I do? I just magically cleared the fractions. This is so much nicer than what I originally had, okay? All right, so my directions tell me clear fractions. Step 2 is get rid of parentheses if we have some. I don't have any parentheses here. Step 3, I believe, is get variables on one side of the equation, and I like to move the smallest one. 15n here, 60n over here. I want them both on the same side, so I'm going to move the smaller one. I'm going to subtract 15n from both sides, and that leaves on this side just the 48. And over here, the 70 was not affected at all, but 60n minus 15n is going to give me a positive 45. 45n, I should say. All right. So I got the variable on one side, and now I'm going to get rid of this 70. So let's subtract 70. All right, subtract 70 from each side, and I get a negative 22. Negative 22 equals 45n. Last step would be divide by 45. Divide by 45. And what do I get here? Am I going off the screen? Can you see that? Okay, I get n equals negative 22 over 45. Okay, there we go. I'm losing some ink here. All right. So we're going to do one more example. But hopefully you can recognize, like, if we can get to this step, I have so much confidence that you can all get this answer. But it's clearing that fraction is such an important thing. So we're going to do one more example together, and I'm giving you kind of ugly examples. But try this last one. Again, try it before me. If you can do these examples, then everything else is going to seem easy. The homework's going to seem super easy, I think. All right, this last example here, let's throw in a negative number. So I have negative 2/3 n plus 5n minus 3/4. And all that we're going to say is equal to 3 plus 7 halves n minus 1/3. Okay, so there's a lot here. Can you see that? Hopefully that shows up well. Yeah, okay, good. All right, so step 1, got to find the LCD. Got to find the LCD, because when I multiply the LCD by everything, it's going to clear fractions. All right, so let's look at my denominators here. 3, this is essentially a 1, a denominator of 1, so I can ignore it. So here's a 4, so I have 3, 4, essentially a denominator of 1, right? 2, 3. 3 repeats. So I have 3, 4, and 2. All right, 3, 4, and 2. And so I'm going to take the largest one and start doing multiples. So I have 4, which 2 goes into 4, but 3 does not go into 4. Okay, so the next multiple of 4 is 8. 2 goes into 8. 3 does not go into 8. The next multiple of 4 is 12. I know that 3 goes into 12. 4 obviously does because we're doing its multiples, and I know 2 does. So my LCD is 12 there. All right, so what do I do next? Could you answer that if you were here live in person? Hopefully you would say multiply everything by 12. Multiply everything by 12. Okay. All right, so there's a lot here, but trust me, it's going to be much nicer because fractions will be gone. Let's get rid of this right here. So 12 times negative 2/3 n. Well, first of all, I know this is going to stay negative because I'm doing 12 times a negative number. And how many times does 3 go into 12? It goes in 4 times. Times 2 is 8. So I get that negative 8n. Let's do 12 times 5n. Well, 12 times 5n is going to be a positive 60n. And then this last one, there's 3 terms in here. 12 times negative 3/4. So I know it's going to be negative. Positive times a negative is negative. And I'm going to say how many times does 4 go into 12? 3 times. Multiply that by this numerator, which is 3. So 3 times 3 is 9. In this case, negative 9. All right. Go over here. Multiply 12 times 3. I'm going to get 36. Multiply 12 times 7 halves n. All right, so 7 over 2. Let's do that here. How many times does 2 go into 12? 6 times. And what is 6 times 7? It is 42. So we get 42n. And then this last one right here is a negative 1/3 times 12. So I know it's going to be a negative answer. 3 goes into 12 4 times. 4 times 1 is 4. All right, let's see here. We're looking good so far. All right, so I'm going to clean this up. This is kind of ugly here. I'm going to combine like terms first. I have a negative 8n and a 60n. If I combine those, that's a positive 52n minus 9. There's nothing to combine on that side with it. All right, put my equal sign. Over here, what are my like terms? I have 36 and a negative 4. Those are both constants. I can combine those to get me a 32 plus 42n. All right, so I cleaned it up a little bit, combined like terms. Now I'm going to get my variables on one side of the equal sign. I have 52 in here and 42 in here. So I'm going to move the smaller one. That's always easier. So I'm going to subtract 42n, subtract 42n. And what does that get me? Well, over here it goes away, and I'm just left with 32. And on this side, 52n minus 42n is 10n, and then minus 9. Okay, we're almost there. I'm going to add 9 to each side. Get rid of this subtraction. All right, and I'm going to write my answer. Oh, I'm running out of room. I'm going to go over here. Okay, so I'm left with 10n equals, so over here the 9 went away, so 32 plus 9 is 41. And then I'm going to divide both sides by 10. Divide by 10. I'm left with n equals 41 over 10, or I guess that's 4.1 if I want to try it in decimal form. That's it. I hope you found this as magical as I do. But knowing how to do this, knowing how to find least common denominator, and then multiplying it to each term, what we call these friendly fractions when I use that method, it gets rid of all fractions. Every problem I throw at you, and this one was pretty ugly, we got it to here, which was much, much nicer to solve. So I hope that made sense and you guys enjoyed that.